All right.
All right, made this post on the social page. Excellent.
Here we are.
We're seeing a zombies list with Infernal Ritual. Well, I'm looking forward to that.
Awesome.
Where do you stand on the card?
This is actually going to be the first time I've ever seen it played. I mean, in terms of just when I read it, I was just like, meh. I mean, obviously, I think it is a powerful effect, but it's not sexy, if you ask me. In other words, I mean, just think about it with a card like Inyog, though.
Yeah, I know, yeah.
So, I mean, especially you get 2 or 3 of those going, all of a sudden creatures in your side lane have a lot of regen, and sometimes that can be abused.
Absolutely.
We're gonna see it in the flesh right now, though. We've got one cast, so. All right, guys, we're back with set 2 of the 5th faction versus the Iron Mind Company. Still had all of D's is up a set. He defeated Chort last round. Let's see if he can continue his streak, or will he be defeated and therefore needing to be replaced by Gloomate.
And for those who haven't, been able to watch the first match, so that was Mono Utera Dinos versus an AU, robots and Dino Hate deck. So that was a matchup, and because of the format of these this league tournament, still had all these is still playing that AU deck, but the TIC player has to play something new, and now we're seeing this AU deck versus zombies.
Right. We conferred in between rounds. I say we. This is TIC Mike, by the way, joined by O-Rats. I am on this team, and I probably will be playing if there is a game 3. Well, there will be a game 3 if Gloomate loses, or a set 3. We decided that zombies would be a good sort of thing to go with versus this kind of mid-range AU with a late-game Othra threat. If you see this Wrath's Will there, if an Othra, is played, it's going to be punished. Well, I think that'll happen at once at most. Still had all of these, isn't going to risk it. Not quite as bad as a Soul Reap. I've played. I'm a
Necrium is also at its best though in this matchup.
Yeah, I'm a Necrium guy, and I've definitely taken Othras on 2/3, 2/4 with a Soul Reap, and just instantly they quit. Obviously, pretty fun. But so far, so good. Xerxes is obviously great versus a non-Necrium combination. So far, I'm liking what I see from the Gloomate.
So this is a thing to note, right? So in this format, cards like Xerxes are actually better than normal because, and you can probably afford to run 3 and should run 3 because, you can only decide to bring in the deck that has the 3 Xerxes when you know what the opposing team is playing. So this is
said. Exactly. That's a good point. However, on the flip side, if the faction has a mono Necrium deck, for instance, they're definitely going to bring that in when the opponent has 3 Xerxes. So,
absolutely.
And that's why it's really cool.
Yeah, these little, added strategic decisions you need to make.
Yeah, I had to explain and kind of convince a lot of people about this format, but I think because it's hard to explain like the meta strategy of using decks and coming up with 4 decks, and it's going to change per week, right? So this isn't a one-time thing. As this league progresses, is a team going to use the same 3 decks they used last week? Maybe not. Maybe they will. Who knows? It's
almost surely not, right? But yeah.
But you could, right? Because you assume.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Theory. You assume they think you're going to change, and you don't. And yeah. So are we going to see a patron here? I do like Patron of Tarsus.
Powerful.
I like the patrons. I think they're cool. So far, we've seen patrons in 2 out of 2 matches.
TIC decks. In 2 out of 2 TIC decks, right?
Yeah, and yeah.
The Patron of Tarsus is just incredible to my mind. So like, I mean, I'm still agnostic on, you know, what's the most powerful shelf for it. It can definitely do amazing things in, you know, life drain, Crypt Conjurer style decks that are mostly like almost mononecrium. It can do wonderful things in zombies. You know, it has so many applications. It's like an epidemic on a stick, but the stick happens to be threatening. It's a good body.
So we see Gloomate playing 3 cards. How did he do that? Well, Zrath's Will kills the creature and allows you to play an additional zombie. Very good play. Unfortunately, no regeneration buff. And we're
So that's another thing, right? So you know, we were talking about you know, how we feel about this Necrium regeneration enabler, the spell. That's another tricky thing about zombie dread knights and, you know, regeneration-based strategies, right? Which is that they have relatively few really good payoff for the regen. You know, the biggest one being dread knights. I don't know if this deck is running Iniog, but that could be another form of payoff. And they don't have that many regen enablers, and if you don't draw them at the same time, then things happen, like this. These are all things to keep in mind in evaluating this new Necrium card. And I still maintain I have no idea whether it's just garbage or if it actually has some, you know, competitive potential.
The thing about these patron cards that, now that I think about it...
Patrons are amazing, yeah. What are you going to say? Yeah.
Well, right now, they're cool, right? Because
Yes.
mono strategies are in a good position. But what about in like 3 sets from now? You know, think about it.
Patrons
Unless
are
they
amazing,
still
yeah.
continue pushing this mono
right
thing.
now,
You know, in other words, in the future, if they print, say, an allied card, right, that requires you to play another faction, and they're, you know, they come out with a whole set based on this like allied thing, you just kind of negate your patrons. Like, they're just never going to be played again.
But on the other hand, though, and that's the cool thing, right? It will leave. I mean, and you know, hopefully they're going to print more cards that, you know, give you a good reason to be monocolored. But you know, so that's always going to remain an option, right? If you have really good cards that, you know,
Stops right there. We could see him steal a behemoth if he plays it right. I hope he does, because that is one of the funnest things there is.
Yes.
Excellent, excellent. Get it. Nice. Gloomate. Okay, so what were you saying? Sorry.
No, we're gonna see the behemoth still. Oh.
What a cool interaction, though.
Someone is asking, who are the commentators? The commentators are at the moment TIC Mike and ORATS from A1. Turk is saying that allied pairs well with the patrons. Yeah, I actually agree. So you know, having your little splash being off-colored allied cards can be very good.
Yeah, that's a good point, Turkis. That was the first thing that came to my head. I guess I didn't think it through, but you're right. That would. My point was that specifically, you know, you think that try to make you go 2 colors,
Right.
and you think about this card basically says only play in a mono deck, and I just don't know if I like. I don't know.
No, I see your question. I guess I'm firmly on the side of thinking, you know, making powerful tools that funnel you and restrict you in the kind of strategy you can play is an interesting thing for the game, because it just, you know, can add to the diversity of decks that's in play, and that's nice. But it's like diversity is good for the game. For example, playing Sage with Ether Pile, absolutely fun. You know.
So, good game so far. We had a cool interaction where Xerxes stole a behemoth, but that triggered a...
Your favorite thing, which you've been talking about ever since we started this discussion, right?
Okay.
It's
Yeah.
a lot of people's favorite thing to steal a behemoth with Xerxes. You know.
Yeah. I played a similar, well, not a similar, I played a mono Necrium deck in the last Golden Gauntlet, and I think I ended up stealing like 3 behemoths and 2 or 3 other, I mean, I stole about 6 cards in 6 rounds, and it's really fun. Okay, so we want to see a Xerxes, and we want to see a Dread Knight, and we want to see a Scythe. Unfortunately, we can't play all three, so...
Well, actually, like, isn't also just killing something with Duskmar an option?
Yeah, but unfortunately...
You think you need the regeneration enabler? Is that it?
Yeah, he's not going to gain... he's not going to really gain board control. I mean, Xerxes, I think, is a must level here, because it just...
Yes.
The level 3 is just so oppressive that he can take out a sentry, and he can play...
I mean, another thought would be, to try to get this behemoth, to kill this behemoth with the Xerxes, potentially, leaving it open to just dying to random gauntlets, but then making sure that both the behemoth and the Forge Watch sentry are off the board.
I think this is a decent play. I might have considered scything, though, just because even though you don't kill the behemoth, you basically kill all of his other creatures. I mean, not kill, of course.
But you take a lot of damage in the process, and the other problem is that Forge Watch sentry is a threat as removal.
Yeah.
And, you can debuff it all you want, but, it can still,
Well,
so
hindsight's
much damage.
I was thinking about the Zrath's will. See, if he had scythed last turn, he would have a will here.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Something to keep in mind. Although he's definitely going to do -3/-3, unless we see a Dendrify.
So that's a very nice interaction, right? So like, and again, coming back to this format, knowing what your opponent is playing, being able to choose. Okay, we're going to bring in this deck. Xerxes and Zrath's will work very well together.
Wow.
So that was the gauntlet worry. You see,
Yep.
it would have taken the Xerxes out as well if he had gone with a line of like blocking the behemoth with Xerxes and killing the sentry with Duskmaw. So you couldn't play around that. But Forge Watch sentry, no matter its attack, remains a threat.
I believe Gloomade is playing Howl, and next turn is when Howl becomes,
Close to lethal.
pretty, I usually, when I play Howls, level 3 really is when you can play him, because 24 damage swing, or 24 life swing is kind of worth it.
Oh, yes.
So he's, not to mention that he's going to be taking away half of his life, more or less. I think Gloommade's going to have a pretty solid turn next time around. If still...
we're not seeing still had all these hands. So yeah, but yeah, from the hand it looks like things will be happening. So, how do you feel so far about the burn deck that people have been playing?
I've
I don't want
played...
you to reveal, like team secrets and so on, but just curious about your general thoughts.
Honestly, I don't even have the Frost, because I think a lot of people don't have those cards yet because they haven't been in the the pre-release or whatever. It's not Tempest week yet, so you don't get a discount. So it's cost $1 million silver to get 3 Frosts. But anyway, I have played against it a lot in queues and whatnot. In terms of, obviously there's 2 opinions. One is how does it play, and like not commenting on if it's fair or good for the game or whatever.
Right.
It's a good deck. I mean, it usually tries to win before player level 3.
Yes.
It's a lot like, it's a combo deck, which means it requires you to draw that card. If you don't draw Frosts in player level 1, you're at a huge disadvantage, obviously, because then you're casting pretty bad cards for very little value. Flame Lance and stuff. I mean, those cards are great when they're doing 3 to the face or 6 to the face.
But even there are not necessarily taking out the relevant threats, right? So as we were saying earlier, just discussing between among ourselves, there's this problem, which is that the burn spells that aren't Rage of Kadras and explosives don't match very well against the threats that see the most play. So yeah, if you're not killing your opponent super fast, this was
interrupt, but
game.
next game.
Yep.
But yeah, the burn deck. You know, I've played against a few variations. One is like Mono Tempest and tries to just really just burn you out and kind of ignore your creatures and kind of, it's a dice roll.
Yep.
Then I've seen more controlling decks play Ambriel's Edict.
Yes.
Which, that's the only time I've lost to it. I played against, well, I guess I shouldn't reveal them, but someone on a team, so someone we've all heard of,
Yep.
and they beat me with, usually I either win by one turn or lose by one turn, and in this case, I lost by one turn because he managed to cast all 3 edicts, and you know, in before player level 3, and I just couldn't race him, right? Because he's doing unfair things every time he casts 3 spells a turn with Static Shock. I'm taking 12 damage, so it's cool. I think it's a viable deck. We're going to see a lot of it, and we're going to see various variations. It's one of those things where, unlike say Herald of Destruction, the Herald Bomb decks, there was kind of only one version with maybe 3 flex slots. The only thing that I really love about the burn deck is that I think there's going to be 1 or 2, maybe even 3 variations that are various levels of aggression, you know, and combo.
Absolutely, because we could even see decks that aren't so focused on the burn, but that are focused on, you know, doing oppressive things in player level 3, like the various like infinite combos, you know, within the game, and maybe even some variations of Stasis Warden, you know, so decks that you know can get to player level 3 and then make sure they have free cards.
Yeah, can you imagine? Holy cow, a Stasis Warden deck with that thing?
Yeah, so you have, you know, maximum levels of uninteractivity.
Maximum levels of annoyance.
Of uninteractivity, right, in all ways, like.
So, back to the matter at hand, we've got Game 2 of Set 2. Gloomate took the first one with his Deezian zombie deck versus still had all of D's Esperian sort of hate mid-range. We're going to have probably the Dread Knight, these Wrath, and a Brute, perhaps? We'll see.
How important do you think leveling Brute is for the zombies deck?
I tend to like Brute a lot. How important?
Because it plays 2 functions, right? So even under leveled, it's a Dread Knight enabler.
It's an enabler.
But then, you know, like once you level it, it does, you know, buff your creatures quite a lot. So that's why, you know, that's why I'm curious to hear.
Well, and I like the fact that, like, sometimes you want to play it in the side lane to get the buff. Sometimes you want to play it in the middle lane and let something else get a buff that would, you know, it's versatile, in other words.
Yeah.
Whereas something like, what's the other Zombie Titan? Zombie Titan, you kind of have to jam it in the side lane every time. Doesn't have very many sort of tricks.
Oh, it's not a constructed playable card.
I mean, people were trying to play that a lot in the early days of Zombies in Set 6.
Yeah.
And I mean, I'm sure some people 4-0'd with Zombie Titans, but it just doesn't, it's not consistent enough. And mostly bad.
I mean, arguably even Tomb Pillager is not the most exciting card to be playing.
Definitely not. So what's going to be interesting is he going to put this Wrath in the side lane to get regen and risk getting... Okay, yeah.
He wouldn't get, so like here he wouldn't get blown out by an Aegis Knight. He would
Gauntlets though.
Well, it would just get removed, right? Which
either way.
Which it would anyway. Like no matter where you put it, it's gonna get removed by Gauntlets. So I like putting it in side lane to get the buff and kill this Aegis Knight if you know still had all these can't take care of the this Wrath.
Wasn't Gloomate? I thought I saw him play Utera card. I apologize. Maybe he's on my team. I don't even know. Thought I saw him play mono a Utera card. It could have been me thinking the Behemoth that he stole. That was probably it.
Are you seeing the game right now? Okay, now I'm seeing it. Good. I have no idea what just happened because we weren't seeing, right?
Yeah.
So presumably this was Forge Watch Sentry and then Gauntlets on the Aegis Knight? No. No, this was Forge War Sentry, Combat, and then Scout Aegis Knights.
Yep.
Yeah.
Gotta do it. Yeah, this is the thing.
Again, this ritual. Which, okay, you were gonna say.
Well, I was gonna get to where you're gonna say is that ritual. You know, it's just a card that does nothing a lot of the time, and you know, I don't know about that. If you don't have any cards on the board, or you're behind, you can't afford to just play something that gives your theoretical creatures regeneration.
As we saw though in the first game, like there were spots in the first game where we could have seen it do some work, which was, you know, in player level 2, and yeah, mostly player level 2, there were a few spots where, you know, Gloommaker.
Okay, so
Anyway.
we're seeing still had all of these adjust to this zombie attack. Good stuff. Unfortunately, he wasn't able to level any Zrath's wills. That's why I really, sometimes you have to kind of make the worst play with Scythe and or, I guess, Patron in this case, because Zrath's wills, if you don't play them, they add up in player level 2 and 3 to just becoming dead cards in your hand. And we see he drew 2 here. That's 2 cards that are not going to be played. Yeah. Another. So now he's got a level 3.
Yeah.
Gauntlets. It's not looking great.
Gauntlet is such a huge threat.
Yeah.
When you get to level it. I mean, even just a level 2 gauntlet is, you know, is almost always doing, you know, great work. It's just a level 1 that you can't always get value from. And that can be a deck building question. There's some people who think you should have, you know, like way more than just the Forge War Sentry as, you know, like really great level 1 gauntlet targets. Yeah, have no way of getting good value from level 1 gauntlets.
Yeah, we're getting comments about Infernal Ritual. Yeah, you kind of have to play it very early, but the problem is if you play it very early,
you lose a tremendous amount of tempo, right?
Tempo, and you just fall behind. I mean, I can see it being played, like if you have, for instance, on you draw first or you play second. Maybe you have a Duskmaw and you kill whatever he plays, and then you play Infernal Ritual. That's like best case scenario.
Right.
But when you're behind 3 creatures on board, and even if you have like a level 3 Dread Knight or something, like it's just almost not as good as playing 2 creatures.
And another thing about it is like unlike the Tempest one and maybe the Utera one, but I'm not sure. I think there's a similarity between the Necrium spell and the Eloian spell here. They don't really snowball.
Right.
So it's not as if like playing them earlier, you know, is going to get you like that much more value. It gives you value when you draw the creatures that benefit from the regen for sure, but the cards that are just fine to play, say towards the end of player level 1, if you know that you're not behind and there's no risk of falling hugely behind. So you can just find a spot where you're not losing too much value, ideally.
And compare it to the red one, the ice black.
Ice grass, yeah.
That snowballs. You play 1 and it's kind of tempo loss, but you play 2, another tempo loss, but now you're just kind of snowballing into every time you play a spell with Static Shock, you're going to do 12 damage to someone, which is just super impressive.
And since like the strategy of, at least, you know, a lot of the decks that run Ice Grasps that we've been seeing recently, the strategy is to really kill as fast as possible. In that case, the earlier you play it, the better.
Exactly. Disregard what they're doing. non-interactive, etc.
Yep. So that like the question in terms of evaluating these cards is just really hard to evaluate, but in terms of evaluating the Infernal Ritual specifically is, unlike the Eloian one, it doesn't really help your creatures survive combat. Like your creatures' stats still have to be good enough for them to survive a battle, and this means that unless when you play it you get to abuse it with your cards that benefit from regeneration, like the Dread Knight,
Yeah.
You're not getting that much value. It doesn't help you win combat. It doesn't help, like it doesn't do all that much if you don't draw your cards that really abuse regen.
Yep. The only really thing, I mean, doesn't Iniog immediately?
Yes. What's that?
So I mean, that's kind of the only thing that's like really, really good that I can see so far. So if you play a turn 1 Infernal Ritual and then you play Iniog in the side lane, he's immediately level 2, right?
But the level 2 Iniog is still very bad. So the target is getting into level 3, and then is there a very powerful strategy that can do that by relying on the ritual? I don't know. It remains to be seen, right?
So Gloomate is coming back. He has managed to sort of come to parity at least. He's stabilized somewhat.
Yep.
Assuming that Still Had All of These doesn't blow him out. This turn we're going to see sort of a equalization, and hopefully Gloomate can draw into some of his howls and continue to put pressure on.
Oh yeah, I'm just reading Iniog again. So Iniog has no regeneration to start, so you need a lot more than just the
awful.
regen 2 buff. Yeah, in order for it to level up. That's absolutely correct, as people pointed out in the chat.
Awful. Thanks for pointing that out. I thought that Iniog started
with some amount of regeneration. No, so it's the level 2 that has regen 5
right.
To begin with, but not the level 1.
So what you're saying is we need to have both the Necrium and the Utera Overload Legends to buff Iniog and give him regen, and you didn't play creatures, you played 2 Overload spells. I was being facetious. Again, TIC Mike with you, and ORATS, commentating on the first match of the SFTL, Soulforge Team League, TIC versus 5th Faction. Still Had All of These took set 1 with a 2-0 victory over Chort and his mono Utera Dinos. Still Had All of These, as you see, playing an AU sort of mid-range hate deck. This is game 2 of the set 2. Gloomate won the first one.
Yeah, so as Sunlance is saying in the chat, yeah, you catch me. So you probably meant the wall, right? The wall that combos with regen. I would consider splashing Utera for that in a deck that's trying to abuse Iniog and Infernal Ritual.
Little Aegis Knight. Oh, that is a scary Aegis Knight now. So, yep, Dread Knight. If he plays that Dread Knight here.
So one of the interesting things about this matchup is Still Had All These doesn't have that much reach.
Right.
So by this point in the game, if Gloomate can avoid taking damage, can put himself in a very good position, but can he? Is the question. And with this, Aegis Knight with 9 health, it might be very hard.
I like this play a lot. He's just saying, okay, I'll take 10 damage next turn for pretty much board dominance here. And now he can potentially do a howl next turn. Unfortunately...
So we don't see the lists. Do you know how many... Can you reveal how many howls he's running? Is he on 3?
I do not know. I know
because that's another consideration, but yeah.
The thing is, even if he plays this howl here, he doesn't quite go into like double howl mode. That's something I think about a lot, especially in the beginning of a round. It's like, okay, he's at 36. If I can take him to 24 and I can potentially draw 2 howls next turn, it really influences my decision to play the first howl of the round.
Yeah, totally. But similarly, like if you're passing on a howl, you can ask, can I count on getting a howl?
Right.
In the remainder of this player level, and how high are my odds of that, and so on.
Yeah.
But yeah, I agree with you.
It has a lot to do with how many tendrils you've drawn and how dire of a situation you're in. I mean, if howl is your only out, you kind of have to play to hoping to draw 2. That's a very rare situation, though. You're exactly right. So he can swing here for 27.
But he can't take out this knight.
But he won't. So if he sides and howls, I think that.
Is that lethal?
Oh, yeah, you're right. I'm thinking that's a level, but it does.
Yeah, I think he absolutely needs to howl just to survive the 2 attacks.
I mean, this puts him on howl for the win,
Mm-hmm.
and he is not in danger of losing next turn. He's going to get at least 1 more turn.
I mean, things need to happen for Silhouette Ortiz not to lose here, so there's that as well. Yep.
Okay, so that was an example of he's just kind of disregarding this Aegis because it's got such a high threshold for pain with 9 armor that blocking it is just absolutely terrible value.
Right.
So he's kind of minimized the risk while this is a gambit. In other words, he's trying to say, you did that, I'm going to disregard it, do my thing,
Yep.
see what happens. Hopefully
And the debuff and the attack debuff there, was incredibly valuable.
Yep. So, still have all of these. Could be. Okay, we're gonna see a fatty. Oh, jeez.
This card is brutal, as you were saying earlier.
But it's gonna get sniped. Problem is, how is he? Oh, so he can use Wrath's Will,
And Patron of Tarsus.
or just Tarsus. I think he Tarsus and Duskmaws the Solgrims.
Yeah, you have to. Yeah. Or, I mean, you can actually... I'm not sure if you Duskmaw the Aegis Knight. That's a...
Yeah, D's unfortunately kind of didn't have the greatest draws until Solgrims, of course.
What's the debuff on Patron 3?
On level 3, I believe.
It's
6.
5?
6.
Oh.
It's huge.
The chat isn't speaking to us in real time, so let's just check that.
Yeah. I'd like to see Gloomate take his time.
Absolutely, it's -6.
Got it.
It's huge. Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is an interesting line because the Aegis Knight is not doing anything other than being Gauntlet's target or something that will interact with other Aegis Knights. It's not threatening to kill the creature just in combat.
Yep, and it's also to that point. If he does want to Gauntlets it, it's yet another investment in this creature that's doing nothing.
Exactly.
It's basically a 1-for-1 trade, and if you're behind, 1-for-1s don't cut it.
And even here, I mean, Aegis Knight 3 would be interesting, right? So, or even Aegis Knight 2. So Aegis Knight 2 in this lane 1, then you combat, and then you put some sort of creature, whichever. Oh well. Yeah. So now you can just win.
This is
you can remove creatures. Yep.
What an exciting match this is. Both players under 10 life for like 2 or 3 turns.
Except that, as we've been saying, one of them does not have access to reach.
That's true. Yeah, you kind of have to jam the fatty.
I think so.
You
especially
could,
because of the Dread Knight synergy.
yeah. I mean, if you got to kill the you got to kill his creatures. Unless you know, but if he doesn't have to kill the creatures, there's no point in playing the Dire Hound in level 4.
That's right. I mean, so his creature would have survived combat there. That was the benefit.
Right, but then yeah, exactly. But that's a little greedy for me when you can play your enabler. But wow, here comes the.
See, yeah.
That aeronaut with mobility is very scary. He's going to have to attack and then block. Correct play. I agree with that. Good job, Gloomate. You definitely want to shrink the aeronaut because he's the one that can squeeze in damage. Okay, I guess there's only one Howl, perhaps.
Patron of Tarsus level 3 is unbelievable.
Isn't it?
I didn't realize that it went up to 6.
Yeah, it's interesting level. So level 1, it's less than a...
It's one below Epidemic, right?
Yeah, it's 1 below, and then level 2, 1 below, and then par for level 3.
This is just nuts.
Whereas Xerxes is -1, minus...
I just missed you, though. I'm not getting your sound for whatever reason. I don't know if people watching the stream are getting sound from TIC mic. So I can speak on my own for now.
Okay, sorry, I got disconnected. I'm back. I'm back.
Good.
Match is still on.
So what's the worst thing that can happen here for Gloomate?
I think he's drawn a lot of his level 3 cards. He could brick. He still has a lot of Dire Hounds in his deck, which kind of are dead draws now.
Well, I'm thinking coming from still had all these because we're not seeing his hand, right? So you know, just this turn.
I see what you mean. Another level 3 Solgrims or a level 3 Nexus Aeronaut.
Yeah.
That's kind of his only reach, right?
Yeah, because of the mobility or the removal aspect of Solgrim.
Well, also just like right now, Gloomate thinks he's safe, but a level 3 Aeronaut comes down and buffs him, and he sneaks in for the win.
Right.
But talk about suspense. This is going to be it. Gloomate takes it.
Oh my god.
He is my teammate, and I try to be objective, but it's just that the last time we had a team league, we didn't win once. So this is...
I'm completely neutral in this business.
Oh, me too. I'm just saying...
You're not neutral. I'm neutral. I can say this was a nice game, though, and it was also a nice game from Still Had All These.